The 1911-S15 by Alpha Foxtrot is a bit of an enigma. It's called a 1911, but it's double stacked like a 2011, and it uses a magazine made for a Glock, but not made by Glock, and maybe that's why it's confounded the market a little bit. I'm Chris with Jerry'sOutdoorSports.com, and let's get into the S15. Alpha Foxtrot is a company that makes elevated 1911s and Glock clones that are all very fine pieces of equipment. Their most notable feature is the polished diamond-like coating that manages to stay stunning even with fingerprints and smudges on it. So, in a stable full of well-appointed Glock clones and 1911s, the S15 is a bit of a black sheep in the family. So what sets it in a class of its own, and why should you care? The S15 by the numbers is a 3.5 or with the threaded option 4.25 inch barrel that's fed by a 15 round magazine from Shield Arms. It's about 1.25 inches wide and 8 inches in overall length and comes in at 28 ounces. The trigger does use common components from the 1911 series, so you can drop in other 1911 parts in here if you want to. But by all accounts, the trigger is really good and breaks at 4.75 pounds and is clean. The front and back strap checkering is grippy, but it's not so aggressive that it's going to irritate anyone's hands. The engraved chain link checkering on the side panels is nice, but in my mind I would really like it to be a bit more aggressive. The choice of an optional threaded barrel is a strange one to me, but you can't deny how good this thing looks with a silencer on it. My example came with adjustable iron sights, but the newer optics ready versions are coming with fixed iron sights, which I think is a far better choice for something like this that is designed for concealed carry. The action is butter smooth, owing to that DLC coating on there, and its gorgeous appearance is just a byproduct of that. The cocking serrations are deep and angled well enough that even with a slightly glossy finish, I always had a perfect purchase when manipulating the slide. The safety is tuned perfectly. It's very distinct when you bring it into the safe position, and it's very secure, and there's no questions to ask when it comes into the fire position. The web safety. It has web safety. I hate web safeties. I hate it because it's there. Shooting the S15 is very pleasant. Even with it being a 1911 platform that's on the smallish side, it just shoots like butter. The trigger is great. In fact, I had trouble forcing myself to not slap the trigger because I'd been used to some so-so triggers on other test platforms. But after a little bit of retraining on a good trigger, I was able to clean a Texas start quickly, and my bill drills were coming up around the 2.5 second mark, which is pretty good for me, those being from the low ready. And I don't imagine going from a draw is going to add too much time to this. That brings me to one of my complaints with the S15. If you're getting an S15, then you are absolutely getting a custom-made holster for it. I tried 1911 and 2011 holsters and none of them fit. That's because the S15 is neither fish nor fowl. It really is its own platform. Also, being married to the S15 mags from Shield Arms is kind of frustrating for me. Granted, I had no problems with any of the mags that I did shoot it with, but I did have one mag that had a misshapen magazine catch lip here, and when you twisted it, it would fall out of the S15. I called Shield Arms, and within 2 days they had me a brand new magazine, no questions asked. The S15 will also feed and function from the Glock 43X mags, but they tend to rattle around in there, and I'm worried that it would bring a little bit more attention to it than I want when I'm concealed carrying it. With 115 grain range ammunition, I did experience some failure to lock to the rear. Though when I threw in some spicier self-defense loads, that never proved to be a problem. That being said, I would highly recommend cleaning this thoroughly after a range day before you put it in your holster and carry it. Other than that, there were no reliability issues and this thing ran phenomenally. My friend, who is far more familiar with 1911, said that he would probably run it a bit more wet than I was if it was himself. And when I started to run it to where it was dirty, I did get some vertical case ejection, so you might have to ride out some hot brass down the shirt. I have said, and I will continue to say, that we live in the golden age of concealed carry firearms. And the S15 is a testament to that by bringing new innovation to the old concept of the 1911. The only 1911 I actually ever concealed carry was the Sig Sauer C3, which made it a 4 1/4 inch commander slide to a compact officer's frame, and I loved it. Except for the capacity. 7+1 is just not enough for me. And the one and only time I ever had to fire a handgun in anger bore that out to be true. But the S15 deals with that handily, having a 15+1 capacity, and it might even be the smallest double-stack 1911 on the market. It does have to compete with offerings from Staccato like the CS and Wilson's SFX, which I have both shot, and I do love both of those. But compared to those two, this is the budget-friendly option there. And when it comes to function between all of them, I find it almost indistinguishable from them. Though I have been labeled as a heretic when it comes to the 1911 platform. So who is the S15 for? Well, if you're an adherent to the 1911 and believe that God decreed that we should all carry the 45 for personal defense, then you need to look at some other offerings from Alpha Foxtrot. Or if you believe the pinnacle of defensive technology was reached with the Glock platform, then Alpha Foxtrot has you covered as well. But if you've broken with the idea of my stop and power, but still hold a deep admiration for the 1911, but are ready to embrace more capacity and a more civilized recoil impulse, then you'd be a fool to not look at the 1911 S15. If you want this or any other product from Alpha Foxtrot, give us a call or send us an email here at Jerry's. And I'm Chris, he who would dare blaspheme against the 1911, for jerry'soutdoorsports.com, and I'll see you next time.